My name is Allison Judson. I am the assistant principal at LaVista Middle School in La Vista, Nebraska. Just a little bit about our school. So I am the assistant principal in a school that serves grades 7 and 8. And I know that looks different for a lot of middle schools, but here in our district, we serve grades 7 and 8. Um, we have approximately 710 students. We are 35% minority, about 33% free and reduced lunch. Um, I would say the history of our implementation is that this is our PBIS processes are embedded, but we have definitely improved in our implementation and particularly with our professional development over time. Additional context about our district, because I know we have people from all over the country. We are a suburban district. Um, we're a suburb of Omaha. And so Omaha has about 1 million people, give or take. We're one of those suburban districts. We're a larger district. We have two high schools that have about 2,000 students each, three middle schools, that feed into those two high schools. So, our tier one leadership team, um, so our PBIS team, um, this just kind of talks about our PBIS processes, and then this just shows the TFI tool for how we are ranking ourselves based on our PBIS processes. And so what ideally we would like to have a written process for training, coaching, providing feedback. It includes all of our staff in our tier one PBIS processes. And it's part of our continuous improvement process. Supports are differentiated based on data-informed needs, and our PD is aligned with our other school initiatives and supports. So when you think about like that MTSS pyramid model, our PBIS process is being embedded with all of our other like SIP processes and those other, main tier one processes. So our value is to ensure that all our staff are equipped to help the building meet our continuous improvement goals, and that our PBIS tier one processes are aligned, and that our whole staff is invested in improving student outcomes and behavior. And we really try to focus on keeping our building goals a part of the weekly conversations amongst our staff. So we try to make sure that, we are continually updating staff on our data and where we are with our processes, and then how can we continuously improve those processes so that our school and, our classrooms are running effectively and that student behavior isn't disrupting the learning. So just a little bit about our school with regards to how this process fits within us from a broader perspective. So we run what we would call the middle school model. Um, and the middle school model, for those who aren't familiar with it, I know I was at the high school for 13 years. And so when I got my first job in a middle school as an assistant principal, I was unfamiliar with the middle school model. And so it just is that idea. It's an organizational system that was developed to meet the needs of learners at this age group. It really focuses on that interdisciplinary teaching teams. So within our building, we have three seventh grade teams of about 125 to 135 students, and then three eighth grade teams that are about that same number. And those teams facilitate a collaborative approach to education. It allows teachers to diversify what they're doing to meet the unique needs of students. It allows for constant collaboration between the members of those teams. And so those teams include a math teacher, in seventh grade, two ELA teachers, because all seventh graders in our district take two ELA classes. So math, two ELA, science, social studies, and then there's also a special education teacher on each team. In eighth grade, it would just be the four core areas and a special education teacher because they don't take the two ELA classes. But within their schedule, they all have a team plan. And so that team plan is where we have been able to embed a lot of professional development opportunities, which is kind of the purpose of this presentation, is to kind of share how we integrate our PBIS processes into our professional development model. So the way that our team meetings work is each day is designated for something different. So Mondays are communication, and that is primarily our outward communication. So that's when our teams are constructing their newsletters, working on that communication that goes out to families every week. The Tuesdays are for professional development. So as a team, they are doing professional development, and all of that professional development is aligned to our building goals. And those would be our SIP/MTSS and PBIS goals. Wednesday is our data day. So that is the day where our teachers can collectively in those teams dig into their data and figure out what things they're doing well and what things they can tweak in order to best serve students. On Thursdays, that is when our admin and our counselors join those teams to do some problem solving and to kind of talk about those things that they've been doing throughout the week, things that have come up with kids, and then get our feedback and input on different things. And then Friday is that day where they can do cross-curricular planning, where they do those cross-curricular units. And then it's also the day that they collaborate with special education teachers. So our summer through SIP process, through our summer SIP through MTSS, every summer we meet. For those of you who have had the opportunity, our MTSS process, we really utilize that ISIL by riot. And one of the main things that comes through with that ISIL by riot, and I can click on it so you guys can see. But one of the main things is that we always remind people is that the learner, you look at the learner last. So when you're problem solving, the last thing that we can control a lot of things. We can control our instruction. We can control our curriculum. We can control our environment. We have a lot less control on the individual learners that come into our building, and all of those other things work to best support the learner. So that's something that we really try to focus on. Is this? Yep. So then as part of our SIP process, we look at our PBIS data. We look at our behavior data. We look at our, our processes. And then we also set building goals that become our PBIS goals for the year. And then those kind of carry through to our PBIS meetings and everything like that. Then we determine what professional development do our staff need in order to meet those PBIS goals. So what our staff PD looks like, every school in our district has one PD day a month. So as a district, we get one PD day a month. Actually, elementary schools get one additional, they get, sorry, two additional professional development days per year, but we get one PD day per month. And so those days provide those opportunities for us to grow and develop our staff. And so we have done a lot of PBIS training for our staff on those professional development days. And so we can bring in guest speakers, we do presentations, we allow time for collaboration, and then we share our data. I think talking about data is really important. So at every single one of those professional development days, we share our behavior data with our staff. So our teachers can see where we are sitting as a building with regards to our referrals and discipline and things like that. So we have a couple of things here. So we have a PD calendar, and I am in charge of our professional development. So I do all of our PD I've set all of it up in the summer. So that's kind of what our summers are for, is setting our calendar for the entire year. I think that was something that was kind of new to me. And I think that some schools maybe try to do things as the year is progressing. But what we found is that as the year gets going, it gets really busy. And then you forget, oh, yeah, we were going to do this professional development thing. So we try to set it all out in the summer, so that it's all laid out and then we don't, forget about things. Then we also have our team PD document that I'll show you what that looks like. And so that is each team. So I talked about we have three seventh grade teams, three eighth grade teams. Each team has a team leader. Those team leaders, it is their job to lead their team in team professional development opportunities. So I can show you. So this was for the 24-25 school year, and this is our team PD calendar. And so as you can see, it has the dates and then it's laid out in 1 to 5 day or in 4 to 5 day rotations. And so then each team leader can see. And what our staff had asked for, they wanted different modes because people are kind of different in different places in their own learning when it comes to some of these things. So as you can see, the first thing here was we actually did a book study of restorative practices. And so we got copies of the restorative practices handbook, and I got enough that each grade level could have a set at a time. And so that's why you'll see there's two sessions because I had to do it eighth grade first, then seventh grade. And then they had different times where they were supposed to read different things. And then as they were reading, then they had the opportunity to answer some of these questions. And then they could engage with different things. So it was reading. Sometimes there was something additional, like they had videos that they were to watch, and then things like that. And then these were the things that they did in their team meeting. So then there was always a task, and then there was a reflection piece, where they had the opportunity to reflect on some of those things. So that was really where we focused on those PBIS goals was, okay, how can we take a restorative approach to discipline? How can this support us in building our PBIS capacity amongst our staff? And so you can kind of see like one of the things that they were tasked with watching. And then some of the other things, as you can see, like we had a focus that year on grading. And so there were some, things about rubrics and things like that. So each quarter, had a new professional development opportunity, and it all aligned with our SIP/MTSS/PBIS goals for the school year. And then this one. So I think I just put two. Oh, this is this year's. Yep. So then this is this year's with regards to like school to home communication, different tools and things like that that staff can use for home communication. The second part was special education processes. We have a goal for reading, so that's in there as well. And then here, this talks about, I know that this presentation is focused on tier one processes, but here you can see we're doing tier two processes to close out this school year because we feel like we were doing pretty well with our tier one processes. But now we've focused this year on our tier two processes and what that looks like. And so staff have all of these different things that they can read, do, listen, watch, tasks to complete, and then reflections with regards to those PBIS processes and whether it be tier one or tier two. So a recommendation, I guess, is just to use your resources. I think there's a lot of resources within the district that people don't think about when they're thinking about professional development, especially with regards to like PBIS processes. In our district, we have mental health liaisons. And so we have reached out to those individuals, our mental health liaisons, and asked them to come do training for our whole staff on, we did like trauma informed practices 3 years ago. And so that, is really helpful when it comes to like PBIS processes and just improving overall building behavior. Um, Behavior coaches, behavior coaches are great people to reach out to. They can come and do trainings for whole staff. And these are people that, again, are already employed by our district. So we're not paying a ton of money for these people to come out and do trainings for our staff. And I think, sometimes when people think about guest speakers and things like that, they think about these people who cost a ton of money and, have to come from all these fancy places. But there's a wealth of knowledge a lot of times within your own district and people that you can reach out to. Our educational service units, that's what we have in Nebraska to support our schools. And so ESUs are also great places to reach out to. I know there's different acronyms all over the country, but those are just some things to think about when you're thinking about training your staff on your tier one processes. So I wanted to just share the data of where our building has been and some improvements that we've seen with all of the processes that we've put into place. So as you can see, 2022 to 2023, we had 1,745 referrals for our building. The 2023 to 2024 school year, we had 1,432. So we're seeing a decrease. For 24 to 25, 1,367. And this year, if we stay with our trend data, we should hopefully finish the school year at about 750 referrals. So, I mean, that's a drastic improvement. And I think that there's a lot of things that factor into that. I think, coming post-COVID, I think we've just seen a gradual improvement in student behavior since that time. But I do, want to give a ton of credit to my staff because I think they've worked really, really hard in improving their own practices and improving our building processes to get us to that point. So just, we did our TFI, we did our self-assessment, and we were at a 3.0. And so in reflecting and talking as a team and figuring out what is it that we can do better, what can we improve, and then looking at the feedback that we received from our Nebraska MTSS folks with regard to our tier one processes, we just thought that maybe some fidelity checks were important. I think that especially as the school year progresses, we're asking teams to take these professional development opportunities on. And we're leaving it a lot to them to do independently. And I think that, teachers are professionals and we want to honor that they're professionals, but sometimes it's good to just have those reminders and checks for like, are we doing this? Are we implementing it to fidelity? Are we keeping our conversations on topic and on task so that we're actually getting the most out of this professional learning that we're given each week because, they do these each week. And something else that's been really hard for us, it's just with the way our schedule works. Our core area teachers and our special education teachers, they're tied to those teams and they get those plans every single day. So they're really developing, they're getting to take place in all of these or take part in all of these problem solving conversations. But the elective teachers don't get to take part in them. And I think that has been hard because they are missing out on some of those professional development opportunities. And as many times as we've tried to come up with ways that they're going to, it's really hard. You can't find time once a week for all of our elective teachers to get together and take advantage of those opportunities. So that's definitely been a challenge, and we're still trying to problem solve ways to kind of counteract that. And then also, how can we get our classified staff more involved? Because they don't take part in our professional development opportunities either. I mean, sometimes they do, but not always. And then a lot of times they're the ones who are at the door when I have a kid who's in trouble, and they're the one dealing with a student who's really escalated and all of those things. So how can we build their capacity to support students who are having behavioral challenges? So those are some things that we're working on. I think if these are some things that you're thinking you want to implement or you want to improve these processes, just consider your current SIP processes. Like, what does your continuous improvement process look like as a building? Are you being intentional about it? Are you using data to drive those decisions? Is PBIS part of those conversations because, we all know in education that student behavior is vital to, student learning. And so just making sure that student behavior is part of those big conversations about your building goals. And then set reasonable goals. Like what are some small things that you can chip away at that you can actually make progress at, and then you'll continue to grow and you'll see those improvements. And then examine your schedule and figure out what opportunities are available for PD. I recognize that at the school that I'm at, and because we run the middle school model, we have those opportunities built into our everyday for professional development, but not everybody has that. So then what can you do as a building to give your teachers time to develop professionally and improve their PBIS processes and just improve their overall ability to manage and navigate student behaviors. And then getting better, give your teacher leaders a voice. There are people in your building who can lead this charge. And what I've learned is the more that our teacher leaders have a buy-in to this, more people follow. It's one thing when your administration is saying we're going to do this and this is important and these are all the reasons why it's important. But then when people see their teacher leaders buying in and they're leading them in this process, then more and more people buy in because not only are those their friends, but they also are people who they see as, people they kind of want to emulate. Um, Provide choice. So I think that's been huge is that teachers there's different ways that they can learn and they can choose things that are applicable to where they are at in their own professional growth. I think that we have brand new teachers who this is very foundational. And then we have teachers who have been doing this for a really long time and they don't need the same thing. So how can you provide choice so people are getting what they need? Allowing time for application of new learning. Um, you know, Understanding that we start here at the beginning of the year, we have a quarter where we are working on something. So being patient and understanding that people are in different places and then educating along the way. Look at the data often and share the data often. Like I said, I think that's so important that teachers can see we're implementing these things and this is what we're seeing as a result of this. Like you guys saw our referral data. So it would be really hard to say, like, you guys are giving us all this professional development. We don't need it and it's not working, but the data would say that it's working. Teachers, you guys are doing the things and it's working. And then just be patient and grow as you go. Everything is trial and error. Sometimes you try to implement something, you try to put these things in place and you realize that some things were great and some things weren't. So then what can you tweak and change? Um, does anybody have any questions for me?